Hey everybody. Well, yes, as been said, I work in Zabbix, and today I would like to tell you about templates and how we all should create them. Okay, so first of all, I guess that all of you already know what the template is, but anyway, just a brief recap. Well, template is like a monitoring, like a configuration entity that you can find inside Zabbix, and you then apply it to all different hosts. So basically, you can reuse that configuration, monitoring configuration across different hosts. And you can get templates from different places. You can get it out of the fresh installations of Zabbix. You can also download updated templates from our Git repository. Of course, you can also get templates from the community, from the share.zabbix.com, from integrations page, and of course from GitHub. You could find a lot of integrations there as well. And finally, there is no magic here. You can design your own templates just using Zabbix frontend or whatever. It's easy to create template for your own needs. And the situation with templates now, well, we have few things here that we maybe would like to change or modify here. So what's the story? Well, first of all, if you go to the integration page for MySQL, you would find lots of templates there, and which one to choose? It's kind of maybe not so obvious choice which one the template to use. So the first thing is that we are, as a community, as Zabbix users, we are keeping reinventing the wheel here. Somebody writes that, and that, maybe that, and it's all basically the same template to monitor basically the same thing. So first thing, okay, what else? What else is that there were no common guidelines how to write templates till this point. Also, templates actually not all you need. You also would need to have some scripts most of the time to do the discovery and other things. And those scripts, they come in different languages, and so templates is kind of not so easy to install sometimes. And finally, templates were in such shapes that it's not that easy to contribute to someone else's template. If you find some template that you might use, you would just simply clone it and create your own copy. And now you have two templates again, instead of contributing your changes to the first template. Okay, so let's try to make those things a bit more organized here. First, let's, in Zabbix, we're trying to remove all external dependencies from templates, so you don't have to rely on them as much as you did before. Because now you have JavaScript reprocessing, you have HTTP agent to grab items, metrics directly from different systems that provides HTTP endpoints. And of course, new Zabbix agent tool that you can now use to write some very powerful plugins. And since all this stuff would be inside the engine itself, no dependencies basically. And it will be more to come in the Zabbix itself to make templates more portable and less dependent on external stuff. We would also want to ship and give you templates for all basic components or resources out of the box. And we also want to have a common language to speak with all Zabbix users, so we can all get templates that would look alike. Yeah, template guidelines includes naming conventions, best practices, how to collect some different things, and snippets library. And last part of our plan is to make templates easier to work together on them. So stop cloning templates. Instead, let's have a single template that we all would reuse. I actually mentioned something like a resource template. So what's that? Few words on that. before we can finally get to the guidelines. Well, let's say that in IT or everything can be seen as a service or a resource. Well, and a service is something that relies to the real world. Like if you're running an online retail store, for instance, that could be your business service, because if someone can come to your website and order something, basically that means your service is up and running. If you have a public email service, it could be an example of it as well. Or your service could be actually internal inside the company. For instance, if you provide computation resources, services to the other departments inside your company. So our monitoring approach in Zabbix is that you always should start with monitoring of services, of something that really matters. So first, you really want to know, is your website is online? So can somebody come and order something? And so on. So if your service is up and running, that's really good, and that's the first thing you want to know. But we also have resources, those small things, models, components that we all have in completely different IT architectures. It could be databases, it could be some middleware applications, hardware servers, network devices, operation systems, and so on and so on. So those components, they all reused in completely different scenarios. So we should monitor them too, because we are also looking for some answers that we need to get. Well, first of all, if your service is down, a resource monitoring will give you the answer why it is down, so you can get to the root cause of the problem. And doing performance monitoring of different resources, you would also could get the answer to the question why my service is being slow, or why it didn't perform well sometime in the past. And finally, you can predict some problems in the future and to prevent them at this point. Probably there are more reasons to monitor at this level. So just a quick example that we have completely different components in our IT infrastructure, in our architecture. And on top of that, we have our business service. And there are like different approaches to monitor that. You can use synthetic monitoring to pretend that you are the real user trying to do something. For instance, in Zabbix, you can do it using web monitoring functionality, or you can count some real users' transactions to find out what's the percentage of success and failure among them. But down below, all of these other layers, there are resources. And basically, where do we apply templates? Where do we use templates? We don't use them for business services, but we would use them for hardware, for operation systems, for network devices. Well, basically everywhere, but templates are not really applicable to the business services, because we all have them completely customized. So let's just stop reinventing the wheel here, and we all can start using the same set of resource templates together. So finally, let's get back, let's start with guidelines now. So first thing, they are already published. You can find them by following this link in our documentation. And as I said, well, all templates can be used by following those guidelines, but resource template is what we have in mind in the first place. So by going through the guidelines, let's just find the answers for two important questions. What makes a good resource template? and what should be inside such template in the first place. What should be your checklist? First, the template, it should be really universal. I mean, if you have your template really static, really for your only device or your application configured in the specific with the specific configuration, that template is not really universal. Well, think about someone else trying to apply your template, and they have different configuration or different device family. To make the template universal, you have many useful features of Zabbix. You can use low-level discovery, and please use it a lot because it's really powerful. User macros, they also make template dynamic and flexible, and maybe you should avoid putting some rare, very specific metrics inside such template, because you can always have another template and then link it to the first one. Next up, some expertise should be inside the template. As Alexey mentioned already, we believe that template is the container that contains not only interfaces, how to collect something, it also contains some lore, some knowledge about the domain we are monitoring. So basically, we don't really want to give you all the flow of metrics that you can collect from some resource. Basically, we expect that metrics would be filtered out, and only key metrics would be available for users, and as well as triggers. A trigger, they should be set for all really critical stuff inside resource, but don't do too much. There should be no noise. Here, only really important problems should be controlled. Next thing is modularity. That means that template, it should be within the bounds of the resource you are monitoring. So, for instance, if you want to have a template to monitor a database, or like Postgres, you don't really want to put metrics related to the operation system level, like CPU load and so on, because all this stuff, it belongs to another template or for the operating system itself. And that means the template can be very flexible and can be used in different configurations. What should be inside the template? What is the to-do list when you want to create a new template for something? Well, first, think about availability monitoring or fault monitoring, because the first answer you want to get the answer for is this device or host or application, is it available or not? So that's should be always inside the template. And of course, if application or host can report some problems, you should also collect such information, because you want to know what's the health status of such device. When this is done, you can proceed to the performance monitoring of the resource, because then you can get the answers about why the resource slow now or was slow in the past. Inventory monitoring, well, we have, well, Zabbix is not really an inventory system, but still you can collect lots of data about the version of the device or resource and other things, so make it a part of your checklist. And finally, you can also check for some security holes if you have knowledge for it. So make it a part of your to-do list as well. Okay, more things. Don't really make it too complicated, just a template, because don't really waste time trying to pick an update interval for each and every metric. You probably should try to go with defaults first and just spend that time to do to design some more important things like what metrics should be collected. English first, so please, if you want to this template to be shared, please write it in English, and maybe a localized copy if you need it. It can be done as well, but please publish the English version. Next thing is that global regexes, global objects such as macros and regexes, should not really be used in templates, should be avoided if possible, because they are not really exported or imported together with the templates, so you could get a different behavior on the different Zabbix server. Avoid passwords in user macros. Well, sometimes you can't really avoid them, but if you can, just do it. And don't forget about the final thing, is the visualization. We have graphs, screens, and all those things should be in the template as well to make it finalized. Just keep it simple. That means, first of all, that it should be really plug and play for the user, that they imported template, assign it to host, and they should be good. Well, that even if it means that sometimes you would do some magic inside the template. Don't forget about the documentation. Now we have item descriptions and trigger descriptions shown everywhere in the interface. So that means this information would be seen by the regular Zabbix user, and it could be really helpful to them to get to the root cause or some proposals how to fix things when they're broken. And as I said before, avoid external dependencies in your templates. Try to do it without them, because now we have pre-processing such as JSON path or JavaScript, and of course new plugins of Zabbix Agent 2 can be used to not to rely to scripts anymore. For instance, one of the reasons why we still have so many bash and similar scripts together with templates is because we needed to do the discovery of things, and for that we needed to create a specific JSON that Zabbix would understand. Well, that's not really the case anymore, because any JSON array can be used to do the discovery. For instance, a very simple JSON like that you could get from the system, the resource directly, could be like that. And as you can see, there are no really LLD macros here, just some attributes. So if you can get such array directly, you can actually do that. You can create a discovery rule, and thanks to the pre-processing available inside discovery rules, you can now, first of all, use JSON path to get to the JSON array that called disks here, and then moving on to the LLD macros tab, you can assign the values using JSON path again to the specific macros, and then you can use those macros in the discovery itself. If, for instance, your system in return gives you a JSON object, not JSON array, for instance, like a Nginx Plus does, there is no problem here as well. Here you can see that HD, Nginx ORG, and the second one, track, is server zones available on the Nginx. And you still can do discovery of such zones. No problem with that. First, you would create HTTP agent that would give you such JSON, and then create new discovery rule of type dependent item, and with master item referencing this HTTP agent. And then, again, using pre-processing tab inside low-level discovery, you can apply such simple, or maybe not so simple, I don't know, JavaScript pre-processing to actually transform those JSON object to JSON array, and then at the end, you can get all those metrics related to server zones with no external scripts at all. Finally, as another example already mentioned by the colleague of mine, is that you can also parse just any text, basically, like prots disk stats. Again, JavaScript can be applied on the such output, and you can get all values and low-level discovery from that. So you transform those that text that we've seen before to that JSON that can be used again in discovery rule, where we would get LLD part of it, and then again here's your item prototypes and the final result, and again no external dependencies here. Let's move on. All items and triggers should be enabled, and we also want to avoid unsupported items no matter who uses this template. And for that, we can use low-level discovery again. As you may know, low-level discovery is the thing that was designed to create to monitor objects that are of unknown numbers, like it could be 8 network interfaces of the switch, or it could be 16 of them. So low-level discovery would take care of that thanks to prototypes. But we also can use low-level discovery as a filter. So for those things that could be either 0 or 1, or just 1, we still can use low-level discovery there, even though we might have created such items directly. Let's have an example here. We called it singleton low-level discovery, and for instance, Apache HTTP server, it provides additional metrics over there in red that are available only if server npm event is enabled. So by parsing Apache output from the status model, we can actually do that. Okay, we can create new low-level discovery, and in JavaScript we can check if that string over there is it available or not, because if it is, we can then proceed by creating a specific JSON with LLD, with empty LLD inside, and then just append it to all item prototypes or graph prototypes to the end. So at the end, your items are there if this npm event model is enabled. But if it's not, there will be no unsupported items here, giving you errors. So just regular items, as I said, and those items are created from prototypes only if we successfully pass pre-processing filter. And at the end, we get a universal template with no unsupported items and no errors in Zabbix server log. More guidelines, user macros. As already been said multiple times, they should be everywhere in trigger expressions, in item keys, because that's what really makes a template flexible. And you can also use them in low-level discovery filters as well. For instance, let's have a quick example. Let's say I have a template to monitor network interfaces. Yes. And most of the time, let's say for my core network devices, I want to discover all the relevant interfaces and get all the stats about those interfaces. But what if I also have an access layer switches, and I'm really interested only in uplink interfaces there? Let's say interfaces with the filled-in description saying uplink. So what can I do here? Well, we used to do it like that. You have your original template, then you just clone it, and now you have two templates. And in the second template, you can change such filter the way you want. Well, it could be another way to do it using macros. We can, instead of just cloning it, we can create empty template and then just provide link to the first template. So in the original template, in a low-level discovery filter, instead of providing the regular expression itself, you can also you can actually have a user macro filled in there with the default value of dot asterisk that is actually would allow interfaces with any description to be created by default. So let's create new template. It's completely empty, and it has link to original template. And the single thing that we would do here is we would set the new value for this low-level discovery macro, and instead of by allowing any interface to be created, here is the rule that says only interfaces with uplink value should be created. So using user macros here, you still would retain the connection to the original template without actually having to maintain two completely similar templates with just different filters. Triggers do not use item last value in trigger names anymore. There is a specific field called operational data now for such values. Use priority scale suggested. The major point here is try to avoid using disaster severity for resource templates. Leave it to business level problems. Explain the threshold of trigger, and don't forget about macros context. It's a really powerful feature as well. By explaining the threshold, I mean that if you could provide some extra information in the trigger name about why actually this problem appeared, that could be really helpful to everybody. And as I said, user macros context, really powerful. Just a few words now about how to do data collection. What's the preferred way to do it? Well, first thing, as I said, pre-processing and built-in agents like HTTP agents should be the way instead of Zabbix sender or user parameters external scripts. Why? Well, first of all, if we do that instead of Zabbix sender, we minimize the observer effect. Also, all processing is described inside the template, nothing hidden, everything is available for to be explored. And it's more platform independent, and finally you have a much better control how data is collected comparing to data sender that's kicked in by some cron tab or something like that. Still, there are possibilities that the Zabbix sender is more preferred way. If, for instance, you implemented Zabbix sender protocol just inside your application itself, or if you have irregular data like some events or like backup completed and you want to send that at this point. And if you want to synchronize history data, because that's the only way to do it in Zabbix. And if your script takes a lot of time to complete, like more than 3 seconds, I guess, but actually in Zabbix Agent 2, thanks to new architecture, you can use long-running checks there now. Throttling, you should use it when you need to collect and check some discrete states, inventory items, but this is not really useful to some floats. Final thing I would like to tell you is that's about templates format in XML. Well, if you do export templates in XML, that's quite a long thing now. For instance, that thing can be hardly seen probably from, and it just describes very simple item of ICMP laws. Lots of fields and completely and very little information here. Trigger, it has the same problem. Really long description and not so much information. So what we have done in 4.4. First of all, we got rid of all not relevant fields. Only the fields that are non-default now are in the export. Next thing, we removed all constants like item type or value type are now easy to read strings. And final thing, if trigger is just some simple check that only relies on this item, it can be actually described in the item itself. So at this point, we are getting to the point where it's much easier to control changes in templates using some control version system. And it's easier to write templates now just by using a text editor or some automation with scripts. And I guess next step here would be to switch over to full support of JSON or YAML for templates here. Okay, so those all templates that we ship now, I would like to remind you that they are officially supported. So if you have any issues with the templates that we do, please create issues or feature requests in our Jira, or just leave feedback on our forum. There is a special topic for every template that we have created. Thank you very much.